Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and as usual, we got a good one for you today. Today, we actually connect with Jason Wilson. Jason is a lifelong hunter out of Georgia, but he's doing more than just hunting these days. In fact, he's trying to get more hunters to vote. Turns out there are actually millions of hunters that have licenses to hunt, but didn't register to vote in the last election. So he's on a mission to change that. I won't go too deep into it, but please, guys, check out the show notes. There's a link to Vote for America down there. Check out what he's doing. Listen to the podcast. He'll tell you more. Let's just do it, man. Let's kick this thing off and let Jason tell you some of his stories. Thank you. All right, Jason, welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast, brother. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
Dude, it's I'm glad to have you on. We've been texting for a while. Baker connected us, Baker Leavitt, who was on the podcast previously, man. And I really do appreciate you taking the time. Especially, I think you might be the farthest away person from me right now ever to be on the podcast because you are in Colombia, which is awesome. And it looks like a beautiful day behind you.
Absolutely gorgeous, man. Colombia is an amazing place. The fishing here is to die for. There's saltwater fishing and Fish Colombia. They have tours in the Amazon. You know, you can catch piranha, peacock bass. You literally, you want to catch a 14, 15 pound peacock bass, you can do it in Colombia.
So,
yeah. Relatively inexpensive.
In Colombia? Any
good hunting? I don't really know. I don't really know. So
yeah, I've told this story once before. Well, let's take one step back and then I'll tell you the story. Jason, why don't you introduce yourself? Let's start there. Let the people know who they're going to hear some stories from today.
Okay, I'm Jason Wilson. I'm a South Georgia redneck that figured out a way to get paid to hunt and fish for a living. So on a social media company, we work with a lot of the personalities that you guys see all the time, and we help companies pair with the right personalities. So I spend a lot of time traveling around hunting, fishing. Spearfishing is probably the one thing that I enjoy the most. But if you can catch it, call it, or kill it, I'm probably your man.
There you go.
But yeah, that's it, man. Just love the outdoors, and more importantly, I love introducing new people, women and children, to the outdoors.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, nice to formally meet you, Jason. Now I'll go back to my story real quick, just because I want to tell it. But I don't remember if it was Colombia or Argentina, but we had someone staying with us, and they're like, "Oh, hunting, yeah." And they're like, "Oh, we hunt parrots." And I'm like, "What? I don't think you. I think there's a translation error here." And she was like, "No, we hunt parrots." I'm like the blue, green, red, yellow birds. They're like, "Yeah, we hunt the shit out of them." Apparently, I think this is Argentina. There's just so many of them. And what they do is they like land on cattle and then they peck out the cattle's eyeballs. So they're like this huge menace. So instead of like ducks like we have in America or geese, you go to Argentina and you can just have the most colorful like waterfowl hunt. I guess not a waterfowl hunt, but bird hunt you've ever had in your life, which is pretty crazy. So I always am curious what else in South America they're doing down there because it's so unusual.
Not only do they shoot the parrots, they like to eat the parrots. The parrots are pretty good. Like you go down there dove hunting, they'll leave the doves laying all over the ground, right? But you shoot a parakeet down, they're going to go get the parakeet.
Oh, really?
But yeah, they're pretty tasty. I'm not going to lie, I had them, man. They're pretty good.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to start things off a little bit differently because, Jason, you're doing something really cool. You and Baker are kind of combining your efforts to basically increase the voting of just hunters. Like, doesn't matter who you vote for, just get out there and do it and think about who you're voting for with, your lifestyle. And make those smart choices. But I want you to maybe fill us in a little bit on what you guys are doing and maybe some of the statistics that you guys have, because it is really important, especially with the election coming up here in a few months.
So Vote for America targets a couple of different groups: military, police, hunters, part of fishing, female collegiate athletes, country music. But the numbers in hunting are staggering. Most people don't realize it, but we have nearly 10 million hunters that aren't registered to vote. And there's a plethora of reasons that you get for it. And that's an amazing number for me when you take into account how hunters are affected by these crazy laws. And you guys are in Colorado, right? And they're trying to pass this mountain lion stuff right now and no trap. But like, if hunters actually voted, there's enough of us to change things by ourselves. We vote at a 31 to 33% rate when the national average is 42%. If hunters just voted at the regular rate, we would literally control and dominate the election. And we would get a lot more attention paid to us by politicians. Politicians don't care about hunters because they want to mind their own business, live their own life. And you got these little 3% groups over here screaming to the top of their lungs, and that's the people they pay attention to. But if hunters actually voted at the regular average, where we voted and they could see our power, we would have a lot more power and not get ignored. And I get it. You want to live your life. You want to be left alone. You want to raise your kids. You can do all of that. You can do every bit of that, dude. You can sit out there as long as you take 1 hour every 2 and 4 years to go to the polls and absolutely destroy these woke ideas that are attacking our way of life. And
Absolutely.
these people hate everything about our way of life. So if you're a hunter, it's not enough to just register to vote and vote anymore. You want to change America. You want America to feel like home. Find one of your friends that didn't vote last time and take them. Go eat a sandwich afterwards. Go drink beer. Go to the range. I don't care. Don't take no for an answer. Don't carpool with somebody that votes anyway. You save some gas. Go find your grumpy Uncle Steve that thinks his vote doesn't matter and take him to the polls. And
Yeah.
again, Colorado, man, y'all have crazy people there.
Yeah.
Everything to the west of the mountain is our people. Everything to the east. And if we actually voted like we should, we could make a huge difference nationally and at the state level.
100%. I've actually, since talking to Baker, I've been trying to talk to more people in my circle, and I actually try and talk to non-hunters, because I think hunters, the ones that I know in my circle, they understand the issues and they understand what's going on there. But I'm trying to bring up like the mountain lion thing specifically, and I'm like, hey, if we don't put this down, here's what's going to happen. We're not going to hunt them until they start hunting our pets, and then they're
Yeah.
going to hunt them. But instead of getting money from tax and people asking to do this for the government's just going to hire people and they're going to spend our tax dollars because they're going to kill these animals. They did it in California,
Exactly.
right? They banned
Exactly.
mountain lion hunting in California, but they have killed since banning them over 3,000 mountain lions. And instead of being hunters being like, here, take my money and let me do it, it's
Right.
saying,
We're
hey,
paying
we're going to
someone.
hire this assassin to come in and do it. So I'm like, just think about that. They're going to do it regardless. Same with Catalina Island, right? They banned hunting on Catalina Island. Now they take helicopters out there and mow down mule deer because
Right.
there's too many. So like you have to manage the populations. And I try and explain that to my non friends. And I think I've probably converted like 5 or 6 non hunters to the idea of like, yeah, no, this all makes sense. These are crazy ideas that these people are coming at. I live near Boulder. Every
Right.
corner there's an old lady asking me to stop, trophy hunting, and I'm like, you don't
Right.
understand what's going on, old lady.
Right. Lady, I can trophy hunt, or they're going to hunt fluffy. That's your choices. And it's like Oregon, where they made using drugs not illegal. Who saw that coming? That maybe that was a bad idea. Now they've had to have an emergency. And what'll happen is they'll ban it, and then Fluffy gets eaten, and Fluffy gets eaten, and then some kid on a trail somewhere gets attacked, and all of a sudden, oh my God, we didn't know this. Like this is terrible. And like you said, instead of hunters controlling the population, then they'll pay people to go
Yeah,
out and kill these animals. And it's utterly, you and I see it, we all see it.
yeah,
But for these people in the suburbs, right, they're just they don't think like us. So that's why it's important for our people to get out and vote in numbers like
yeah.
never before.
100%, 100%. I even try and remind people that like it just ballot box biology is a bad idea. Like I shouldn't be able to vote on what you should do with your dog. Like you manage your own stuff. You're the expert of your dog. Let's let the wildlife biologists do their job. Yeah, it's a slippery slope we're playing on right now. So we'll hopefully to all my listeners, get out there, take Jason's advice. Not only vote, but find one friend to do it with you that didn't vote last time. So that's a pretty important message. But now, Jason, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this
All right,
podcast,
man.
right? Let's tell some of your favorite
Well,
hunting stories. I have a feeling you got some good ones, man.
man, I've got some good ones, but in honor of you being in Colorado, I'm going to
Uh
tell
oh.
the first elk that I ever killed story. Craig,
Perfect. Let's do
Colorado, like home of bushes, right? And you see all these pictures of Colorado and everything, and I never thought it was like 8 foot bushes everywhere. But my first archery elk ever was in Craig, Colorado. It was on private land next to some a coal mine with reclamation land.
Okay.
So the private land was awesome. It was an over the counter archery tag, and the first day we flew in, they got us out to a water hole late in the afternoon, and there's lots of mule deer coming in, cows, whatever, but spikes, nothing with any size whatsoever. And
Okay.
so great, awesome food, great fellowship that night. The next morning, we went and got in like a box stand, waiting on the animals to come back from feeding on the reclamation land. Maybe they have alfalfa or something planted on like thousands of acres over there.
Okay.
And there's not really big elk, in Craig so much, but all the bigger elk had already passed through. And I told Levi, I'm like, dude, let's go get back up on top of that mountain and let's see where the elk were coming from that were drinking the water. So we went and took the ranger, went around, got on top of the mountain, and you could see all the elk going back up the mountain. So like, all right, so 1,700 yards from the water hole. They're not going to make it there, so I need to be up this high at dark. I was trying to do the math on how far down the mountain the elk were going to make it. And there's a
Yeah.
little draw, I think, quakies. You'll call it the little quakies, the trees, aspen,
Yep.
whatever, aspirin
Yeah.
trees. There was a little draw on the side of this mountain, and it was like a delta where it all came together. And I'm like, Levi, I think if we get to that delta, this afternoon, that the elk would make it to us in time. And he agreed with that. And then they didn't go on top, like where the elk chilled and laid around. They didn't go up there and mess with them because they didn't want to run them off, right? So that was kind of their sanctuary on this private property. But we went up the next day, no action, no action. It's the first time I found out about how the wind changes in Colorado. It was a lot different from Georgia. So I'm like,
those thermals, right?
Yeah, I'm like, Levi, we are not like, this is a terrible wind, dude. Like, that wind is blowing right where those animals are at. And like, he's like, don't worry. By the time they get here, and sure enough, like as the sun starts to drop behind the mountain, the wind over 5 minutes changes 180 degrees. And it still had a little bit of back and forth. But when the shade hit, all of a sudden the mountaintop comes alive and you start hearing the elk bugle. And they were a long ways away. And, he was calling. I'm thinking, nothing's going to happen here. And he called and kind of like maybe he's answering us. I don't know if he's answering us or not. This is the first time I've ever been elk hunting.
Yeah.
Then it's a little bit closer. I'm like, all right. And the mountain went up. And there was like a little draw there that went down on the other side, and then it went up again. And all of a sudden, this elk is over that draw, and the bugle sounds completely different, right? Like, oh, wait a minute, this thing is coming. This thing is coming. And so I'm set up on a very narrow path in the middle of the bushes, whatever y'all call those bushes there. And I mean, this path isn't 2 yards wide, and I'm looking down into the draw where there's a bunch of trails and stuff. So, we're thinking the elk are going to come down on those trails in a little draw. It's going to be about a 30-yard shot. And this elk comes over the top of the ridge, and he's not walking. Like, he's running. And you can hear the rocks under his feet and stuff. And the rocks are falling. Levi's back behind me. I'm like, holy crap. And then I look up the side of the hill, and you can see him turning his head left and right to get his antlers through the bushes as he's coming down the mountain, like half speed run. And now my heart is running about 1,000 miles an hour, like, holy crap, right? And there's a spot where he gets about 60 yards from me coming down. He's not where I thought he was going to be. He's literally on the trail with me. And he goes behind the thing. I get drawn back. And when he comes out, I'm wearing leaf camouflage, full leaf camouflage. I'm down on a knee in the middle of this super narrow trail. He comes around the corner,
like a ghillie suit,
not a ghillie suit. You've seen the little slide-on pants that you slide on over your that's got the little leaf pattern on them, and you pull the little leaf camouflage shirts on. I use it a lot.
Like it's textured.
It's textured. It is a textured suit that slides on, and I use it a lot when I'm bow hunting. Like I don't really gun hunt anymore. I'll never shoot an elk. I've killed 7 elk now. I'll never shoot one with a gun. So I look like a bush. This fat boy from Georgia looks like a bush in the middle of the trail, and this elk is still coming, right? He is still coming, running. Like, here I am at full draw, and I'm thinking, I'm about to have to let this arrow go and jump before he runs over me. And at the last second, Levi calls, and he is 13 steps from me, directly facing me straight on. Like, and I know how the day before I'd had some wind me, and like those things leave like a Volkswagen Bug or a S10 truck, right? If they wind you, they leave. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to go good. I'm not going to get the side shot. And Levi called to him, and he shifted his body just a little bit, kind of at a quarter. And I shot him right in front of the shoulder blade, and it ran across, and it buried the fletchings up. Like, you could see the fletchings buried up. And it was a Rage 3-blade broadhead. And he spun around, and Levi called to him again, and he stopped. And it literally looks like a water spigot pumping blood out. And I had another arrow, and he's facing directly away from me. And I think he got a little dizzy, and he staggered and started to run. And as he ran, I shot him quartering away from me, and he fell 33 steps from where I was at. So he might have ran 20 yards. And he
Yeah.
took three or four breaths, and my heart is going like a million miles an hour. And this is about a 260, 270 inch elk, right? But from Georgia, that is the biggest Boone and Crockett elk you've ever seen in your life.
Right.
And I mean, like literally, Levi comes down and we're high fiving, going crazy. And he only took a few breaths and he was dead on the ground. So we got over there. I mean, we're just super super pumped, and can't believe it. It's a 5x6, which is great for Craig. I thought it
Yeah.
was awesome. And he's like, all right, well, now the work starts. And we field dressed him, and the arrows actually on the inside, both arrows were on the inside of the elk, and they crossed over one another. They were almost
No way.
touching. Yeah. So one of them went through right in front of his heart and a little bit above, and the other one came through the other way. So all of your arteries right there at the front. I mean, the pump house was destroyed.
Yeah.
And it was the 1, 2, 3 pulling. Like, we needed to get him to where we could get the Ranger to. And the elevation, I am at 230 feet in Georgia. There is nothing like taking a redneck to elevation, and you'll find out just how out of shape you are. But we maybe moved this thing like 30 yards. And Levi's, let's walk down the hill.
Before
It was we field dressed him, and it was 1, 2, 3 pull, and we would move him about 2 feet.
Yeah.
It was
Goodness.
terrible. So,
Yeah.
and again, we're on private land, so we can get a Ranger or whatever. And Levi's like, let's walk down the mountain a little bit and lay our stuff down and catch our breath. And we walk down, I don't know, 100 yards or so. And again, we're pulling him through thick stuff there. Once you get him to the trail, it'd be a lot easier. And Levi, we put our stuff down, and he said, yeah, if we can get him to here, we can get him with the Ranger. And I'm like, dude, if we can get the Ranger to here, we can get the Ranger to there. He's like, oh, no. The Ranger, when you turn the Ranger sideways, it'll tip over. I said, we're not going to do that. I said, when we get to here, we're going to turn the Ranger around, and we're going to back up this trail. We're not going to turn around. So we went down, got the Ranger, got to the spot where our packs and bows were. And anyway, we went up the hill backwards, and I heard his horn hit the back of the Ranger. That is the best part about elk hunting and Craig on private land, not having to pack him out. And we tied him to the back of the Ranger, drug him down, and they had these like 1970 pickup trucks with the roll bars on them with the KC lights across the top, and then they had a winch at the top, right? So the winch was at the top, and you literally hooked the winch to the elk, let the tailgate down, and you pulled him up into the back. And then they had a place that they hung him for the night to let him air out and whatever. And so that was my first experience elk hunting, and it was absolutely amazing. But we had some other guys, and I helped them hunt some more. But the best part is the next morning, we were going to take the elk to the processor. And Levi's kid had a football game, and he's like, telling his wife he may not be able to see the football game because we're going to take it in, and he had to get me back. And I'm like, no, dude, like, I'm all about watching some little kids play football. So we went in, dropped it off at the processor, and when we got there in Craig, dude, there must have been 2,000 or 3,000 people at the football game from the surrounding community. It was like an event, and it was really like America should be, because like the 13 through 16-year-old kids were watching all the other kids play, and the bathroom was out to the street, down the sidewalk, like 300 yards away, where no adults could see or anything, and the other kids were just monitoring. I'm like, oh my God, this is freaking awesome, right? This is the way America should be.
Yeah.
And none of the craziness that we have today, where you're scared to let your damn kid out of sight. But we sat there and watched like Pee Wee Little League football. It was great, and went back, and then I helped the other guys scout a little bit, and one guy, Don, shot a nice elk and didn't get him, and the other guys passed. But that was my first elk hunting trip. And because you can see the elk from one mountain to the next, I'm like, if you haul me bullets out here, I will kill everything in Colorado in like 6 months. Like this, because you literally can shoot from mountain to mountain. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think I'll ever shoot an elk with a gun. And I've stuck to that, and that's been 20 years.
Oh man, that's awesome.
At least 20 years. But that was my first elk.
I wish I was
experience.
a good enough hunter to do that. But yeah, I have a typically every season we'll get an archery tag and a rifle tag because I'm just trying to fill the freezer, and I'm not good enough to commit fully to archery, but it is my end goal to be a 100% archery hunter. But man, that's a great story. One thing, I went turkey hunting once in rifle. And this guy took me out. We had just met and we were going all over the place. And in the middle of the day, he's like, all right, we gotta go to town. I'm like, okay, let's go to town. We hit up McDonald's and then we go to a little league baseball game.
Yeah, exactly. It was awesome.
Exactly like that.
It was great.
And I was
It
like,
was
oh,
great.
this is great. We're just laying
Yeah.
in some grass in our camo. Everyone's coming by and he's not getting any birds. And I'm like, no, sir, no birds yet, but we'll get there. And I did end up killing a real nice tom. But yeah, I know exactly that vibe that you're talking about in Craig, Colorado, except mine was rifle. The cool thing about rifle is well, I don't know, it's cooler now than it used to be, but there was a mine fire. So like the mountain steam. So it was a cooler day, and we were just sitting there watching a baseball game with the mountain just sort of steaming next to us. It's a memory I'll have forever, man. But that's a great story. And then I have another one for you. About thermals, right? So you were saying those winds switch on you?
That was the hardest thing for me to learn and that I mastered. And, we went back again, but that was it. And I'll tell you a story about my second trip in Colorado. But the thermals, once I finally mastered the thermals, figuring out the thermals a little bit, the bow hunting got significantly easier.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you a quick story. It's a funny one, but my buddy that I started hunting with in Washington, he never mentioned the word thermals to me. And so when I moved to Colorado, I started doing my own research and I was like, okay, this is apparently a big deal. So I started paying attention to these things and I got myself a wind checker. And I was like, no wonder we didn't kill anything in Washington, right? But I get a wind checker and we spend most of the day chasing this one bull. It was 2020 after like a foot of snow. So there's tracks. So we're just following his tracks, hoping he'd bed down. Never got up on him. But another buddy of mine had hurt his hip, so he's at camp just glassing. He's like, "Hey guys, at the other end of the like range that you're on, there's 40 elk, just bedded." And we're like, "Let's go." So after some persuasion, I convince him to go that way. So we get to the other side of this like draw, and they're on the other side of this mountain. And I'm like, "Okay, here's the plan. I'm gonna drop down this draw, go up and around the mountain behind them, and I'm gonna come up and over. You just wait here for like 45 minutes, and then you go up to the same elevation as them, and then you come in side mountain." And I was like, if you blow them out, they'll go to me. If I blow them out, they'll go to you. Like, it'll be perfect. And so I get down and I climb up and over and I'm walking through it, and it's like a nice warm day. So the snow is silent, perfectly silent. No crunchies or anything like that because it snowed like the night before. And I get there and I realize, oh, I see an antler. And it's a raghorn, but this is my third year archery hunting. So I'm like ecstatic just to see an elk. So I drop my pack and get everything ready, and I start sneaking forward, and I get to about 50 yards, and I realize I can see like 15 elk, and I'm like, sweet, but it's like a spike, a cow, one bull, and he's bedded right in front of a log, so all I see is his head. Like I can't take a shot, so I'm like, okay, well, I'll just stand here, I can move maybe another 15, 20 yards forward, so I'm going to sneak forward just a little bit at a time. I'll eventually get there, and little do I know that my buddy, he had been moving at this point, and he gets him, and he starts to see the elk. And he's just like, oh, there they are. Well, I'm running out of cover. I guess I'll start crawling. So he doesn't think about the wind. He doesn't do anything. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there just waiting for this bull to stand up, basically. Everything's perfect. The wind's coming like right up and over the mountain, right into my face. Like, this couldn't be better. Except for the fact that my buddy was crawling in open field. The other buddy's watching on glass, being like, no, like trying to text him, being like, stop. He's crawling into this herd. With no idea what the wind is doing. And eventually I'm standing there kind of looking at my sight, and I look up and 40 elk stood up. So I only saw 15, but all of a sudden there's 40. And they all turned their heads at the exact same time, right to where I told my buddy to be. And rather than being patient, he just kept moving forward. And basically he blew the entire herd out. And this is also another lesson that I learned is like they then spun around just slightly to the side of me. And I was like, I don't know what range they are, but I've never seen an elk before hunting, so let's try this. So I just take my 50 pin because I had a 5-pin non-sliding sight, and I just let it rip basically into the herd, like flock shooting for elk. And I was like, as soon as I let it go, I was like, that was dumb. What did I do that for? Terrible idea. Fortunately, they were like 120 yards out.
Right.
So my arrow didn't even make it halfway there, and I was like, okay, phew. I'm glad that I it was just in the moment. I was like, oh no. Oh, I let it rip. And either way, My buddy, I was like, here, I went back to camp and I handed him my extra like wind checker, and I was like, from now on, we're paying attention to the wind. Like, you just
Yeah.
stopped me from killing my first ever elk. So they're a real thing. Those wind thermals in
It
the
is.
mountains.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much a real thing. So, my second trip to Colorado was to the St. Angeles National Forest or something. Does that sound
Yeah.
right? It's like down below Colorado Springs near New Mexico.
That does sound right, but I don't spend too
Yeah,
much time in that area. But
there's
yeah.
there's a big national forest down there, and Lee and Tiffany had the hunting show, so they're hunting with a friend of mine, Jim, that's there. We've got a cabin, and they're on private land. But you can see this monster bowl up in the national forest, and I mean you're glassing 160, 170 inch elk, but like you got to walk forever to get to these
Yeah.
freaking elk, like freaking forever. And it's a 40-minute drive, and then you got to walk like 7 miles uphill, downhill, whatever. And it was private land, so I did not learn my lesson about the pack, the how heavy the pack can be. By the
Yeah.
second day, like leave this 45 Kimber at home, let the bear eat you, and I started just like throwing all the stuff out of my pack that I didn't need. But we got in a perfect position on the elk one day. Like I mean, we were up there, they were coming back up, and a
Yeah.
hailstorm. This is like 10,000 feet or something. It was hot, but a hailstorm. Like we could hear this noise coming, like this crazy noise, and the next thing we know, it's like I don't know, 3/8 inch, half-inch hail just out of nowhere. And we're hiding under some big fir tree or something. And the wind changed because it was in the middle of the wind was coming up the mountain. And then all of a sudden there was an inch of hail all over the ground. And it
Yeah.
carried our scent. It changed the direction. And this entire herd that was coming to us, when, they just chilled during the storm too. But then the wind changed direction and it blew everything out. We were literally where we were supposed to be. We'd put in 3 extra hours to walk in over a mountain through the backside and all this. And there was an old ski resort there that was closed, and
Okay.
it was maybe 12 miles. You could see the town where we were at, but from where we had walked, you had to go back up the mountain and down the hill and up another mountain and like 7 miles up. And it's like, you know what? F this. We're going down. Like we get to that ski resort, we're going to follow the slopes all the way to the town at the bottom, and we'll get somebody to drive us back and get the car. And that's what we did. It was so much
Yeah.
easier walking the 12 miles downhill, and we only had to walk like a mile to make it to the ski slope or where the walking got better, and it's just knee high grass because the thing
Yeah.
hadn't been used in forever. But that's what we did from that point on. We would drive up, and then we would walk back down, and somebody else would take us back to the. It made it a little bit easier. It's a little bit more aggravating on the car, but I would do that 1,000 times
Yeah.
over. And Clint ended up killing a really nice bull. He killed about a 340-inch bull. So
That's
on day
amazing.
6, yeah.
I can tell you got bad knees. You going 12 miles downhill. That's tough on the knees, but it does sound easier than a crazy uphill. You know.
So the bioaccelerator, one of the things that I had treated when I was here 2 years ago. I'm here in Medellin. I don't know if we recorded that or whatever, but they treated my knees. My knees were terrible. And
Yeah.
without having that treatment on my knees, I wouldn't be able to do what I do today. But last
That's
year, a friend of mine drew a tag in Arizona. She lives in Arizona, and her dad got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And
oh
she had a
no.
rifle tag. She wasn't going to go. Her friends, were hunting. And I'm like, no, 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 I'll fly out there. I think we walked 46 miles in 6 days. And
Whew.
Jason, even if I was shooting a rifle, I would have killed 4 trophy elk. And one of
Yeah.
the problems was her fight. She didn't tell me this till after the hunt. Like we got her on a 360-inch bull. A
Yeah.
guy that works
Whew.
for A3 came in and he killed out with his people. He knew the area, so he came in. We had one at 300 yards to 600 yards, and she was trying to lay on the ground, but she couldn't see over the hill when she went to lay down. Right, and there's a
Okay.
pine tree there that you just put your hand on it, put the gun on it, and prop at 300 yards with snow on the ground, just shooting. Like I could track a field mouse in snow. That one
Yeah.
got away, and we're eating sushi. A great trip. She did pass on about a 300-inch bull at 100 yards. She could have easily killed, but she wanted a bigger one. She killed she's killed a lot of elk before. But the day that I'm flying home, we're eating sushi, and she tells me, I'm like, you're awesome. You didn't complain. You walked. You carried your pack. You put in the effort. But the one thing you've got to get a lot better at is from the time that you acquired an animal to the time that you get on target, you've got to get faster at that. You're not always going to be able to lay down or whatever. And I said, especially with whitetail, you may have split seconds, a couple of seconds to shoot an animal that you've never seen before, that you don't have a
Yeah.
picture of, and that's your chance. You've got to be able to, go to one knee, use a stump, use whatever. And so that's the one thing that you could work on, to be a better hunter. And says, I've been thinking about that, and you're right. And in the past, Daddy's always we've had the mats, and Daddy always got him in the scope and everything, and then we just traded places on the mats, and I shot him, and I'm thinking that would have been some really nice information to know before we went hunting, because she's got mountain lions on the wall, she's got elk on the wall, she's got bears, she's been hunting her whole life, and she loves it, and she's passionate. Little did I know that her dad is setting the rifle up with the bipod and all that, and then trading places, and she's shooting. So as far as her transitioning, but I could have killed, had I wanted to shoot a rifle, I could have killed 4 stud elk there, and that is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. So Anderson Mesa near Mormon Lake is just absolutely gorgeous in Arizona.
That's my long-term hunt. I've started collecting points in a couple different states, and so like 15, 20 years from now, Arizona is my end game. That's where I'm hoping to get the biggest bull I ever saw. So we'll see.
There's some giants there, and beautiful country.
Absolutely. One thing I want to go back is for the people, I know I have a lot of East Coast listeners, and I was hoping to just real quick explain thermals to them, because they're like, what's going on with the wind in Colorado? They don't necessarily understand. If you guys haven't hunted in big mountainous areas before, basically it's the temperature of the ground. So in the mornings or in the evenings, the wind, there's prevailing wind, of course, but the wind goes downhill. So it just rolls downhill. What is it? What do you say? Like 9, 10 o'clock when that sun starts to hit that hillside, it just starts to swirl. And then as soon as the ground heats up, that wind is going to shoot uphill. And so that's why it's weird hunting. Yeah. So the peak times to hunt are, obviously in the morning and in the evening when that thing starts to swirl. The animals do it on purpose. But the midday, the wind's always going up. And in the dark, the wind is always going down. But those peak hours, it just swirls. And that's what makes the Rocky Mountain hunting and the wind, paying attention to wind, really, really important. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We normally don't do much learning on this
Coming
podcast.
from a Georgia boy, it was a culture shock for me. And it was the single most difficult thing for me to figure out. Because you've got to figure out what time that animal is going to be where and what the wind is going to be doing. Now, you may be in the perfect spot, but if you're off by 30 minutes, one way or the other, it's over. You just put all that work in for nothing. And so the thermals are something that Georgia people don't deal with a lot. It's very difficult. Right? Now, we are big on scent. Now, scent's a big thing in Georgia, but it's nothing compared to an elk. And in Georgia, a deer can smell you. They'll put their head up. They'll stomp their foot a little bit. They'll, they might get curious, or, they don't necessarily just break and run when they smell you. When a elk smells you, he breaks and run and tears down anything in his way. Like when he catches the slightest whiff of you, he is gone. There's no putting his nose up in the air. There's no nothing. When he's gone. It's over. It's over at that point.
That's what I've heard. It's like, it doesn't matter what you smell like, because they're gonna, as soon as they do smell you, they're gone. Whether you've been working on scent control or not. So just don't let them smell you. Like that's the only option you got for elk. All right, Jason. Well, fun story so far. What else you got for us, man? Let's keep going.
What you want to hear about, man? You want to hear about spearfishing? You want to hear about whitetail hunting, Georgia, dove hunting? Dude, we do it all.
Whatever stands out to you. If you got, my favorite type of story is somebody doing something really stupid. So if you can think of one of those real quick.
I've done a lot of that, but I'd probably go to jail if we tell those stories. The one thing that I personally enjoy doing these days, I've killed thousands of animals. Unfortunately in Georgia, we have a population problem. We have a hog problem. So this year already, I've killed 67 whitetail, shooting them on permit. So that's part of the reason that I don't like shooting animals with a gun anymore. And the hogs are the same way. We shoot, I'll shoot 100 hogs this year in farmers' fields. So bow hunting's the thing for me. But in Georgia, we got this wonderful thing called college football that's coming up. It is my favorite time of the year because Labor Day weekend is when dove season comes in. And it's a really big deal in Georgia. I have a lot of friends, and instead of everyone shooting their own field, it's expensive to plant a dove field. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
fertilizer, seeds, etc. But we take turns shooting the field. We give each other spots. So we have fields that haven't been shot every day of the season when the season first comes up. And then you get cornfields or whatever. But dove season and the fellowship that goes along with dove season dove and duck hunting, especially doves, is my favorite thing in the world to do, because you get together, you're boiling peanuts, you're grilling, you're eating lunch, college football's on, you got that little crispness in the air, and
Yeah.
then you're out in the field, and you don't have to hold still, you don't have to be quiet, you're picking on one another. If dear Lord, you go to missing, right? Because your friends are going to ride you like a pony. But if you never had the opportunity to go on a good dove shoot in a sunflower field, it's something that I would tell all of your listeners to do, like hands down.
Yeah.
And
That's
because it's
interesting.
a lot of shooting. It's a tremendous amount
Yeah.
of shooting. Um, so my favorite thing to do in the world is spearfishing, and I'm gonna compare spearfishing to bow hunting in a dove field, where you may go bow hunting 8 or 9 trips and never let an arrow fly. In the dove
Yeah.
field, you're constantly shooting. So spearfishing is like dove hunting underwater with a bow, but it's a spear gun, and there's lots of shooting, and
Cool.
it's one of those things that's the fish all behave differently. A hogfish will swim away from you, and at some point he's going to turn sideways. So you get to shoot him. But
Okay.
African pompano, if you swim directly at an African pompano or you look at him, you're never going to kill him, right? You got to ignore him, look the other way, maybe pop a band. But the spear fishing is something. And yes, there are sharks. They don't normally mess with you. So I tell everybody, like, the biggest sharks in the world are in Georgia, because I don't want them coming to Georgia. Like, don't come. Like, spearfishing's great in Florida. Go down there. Don't come to Georgia and mess up my stuff. But I had a streak 4 years ago where I killed 12 African pompano over 50 pounds. Most people, if they kill a 30-pound African pompano, they've done something. And I
Yeah.
killed 12 over 50 pounds. One was 59 3/4 pounds. So he was like a
Wow.
quarter-inch short of the world record. So that when it comes to spearfishing, my thing, people know me for, is the big African pompano. And I've seen one pompano. I've seen him 4 times. That was in the mid 60s, and I mean, just massive. And I never got remotely close to shooting him. Yeah, look up what an African pompano looks
I
like.
am.
It's
I'm
this
Googling it
big.
right now.
It's the it's the
That's
it's
a
the
big
big it's
fish.
the big it's the big silverfish. And believe it or
Yeah.
not, they're very difficult to see. Right, that silver, when they're straight on in the water, they can be 20 yards from you if they're facing straight at you and you not see them. And when they turn to
Huh.
the side is when you get the flash. But the one thing I really notice about pompano is they're extremely curious. Like, you wouldn't see them, and then all of a sudden, um, you would shoot a fish, and it's like, oh, there they are. They're out of nowhere. They're there because the action. But it wasn't just the shooting the fish; it was the sound of the band. And I use
Huh.
a koa fatback a lot. So what I started doing is, once I got there, there's a lot of fish there. I'd looked, I'd pop a band. I just popped one band because I had two other bands, and sit there, and here they would come. They would come running, and that's we've tried chumming them, we tried all kinds of stuff, but you see a lot of people that shoot cobia off of bull sharks. The bull sharks have gotten used to hearing the sound of the band, and they go
Okay.
harass the spearfishing, whoever's spearfishing, and get a fish, right? And
And
the
bull
the
sharks are kind
cobia
of the mean
run.
ones. Is that right?
Yeah,
Like
they are. They can
one
they
of the
can
more
be they
aggressive
can be
ones.
they can be a little testy.
Okay.
But if you'll pull up a free diver or pull up my Instagram page, YetiMan10. Pull that up really fast.
Okay, doing it.
YetiMan10. And on the top row there, you're going to see a girl, me and a girl together with a big African pompano. When you
Yeah,
get there,
that thing is
that is
huge.
that is the world record African pompano for a pole spear for a man or a woman. And Freediver staff is amazing at spearfishing. And we talked about the trip for 3 years. We
Yeah.
couldn't. Weather was bad or whatever. She finally came up. We made a plan what we were going to do. She had a couple people from South Africa that was amazing. We had a videographer, and I'm like, listen, let your friends just keep shooting the fish, and you just sit there and be patient. Like, I know you're gonna have cobia swim by you. I know you're gonna have all this. Just be patient. Let them shoot the fish. And I said, at some point, I know the pompano are here, but at some
Yeah.
point when they shoot that fish, And sure enough, Hilton shot a big amberjack that went to fighting. And when they went to fighting, like 5 African pompanos swam in, and she dove down on that one and shot that one. And with
That's
the world
awesome.
record
This is
for
as big as she is, basically.
yeah, with the world record with spearfishing world records, no one can touch the fish. They can't touch your line. They can't touch you in any way. And so she had it on a buoy. She was able to fight it for about 20 minutes. Got it up there, and then once she gets to the boat and goes to hand it to you at the boat, then you can help her. You can do whatever. But the spearfishing is something that I know people in Colorado don't get a lot of chance to do it, but it's even if you don't,
Yeah.
even if you don't, when you have a great day hunting and you're in the woods and you didn't kill anything, but you saw a covey of quail and you saw a bobcat do something crazy or a fox do this. The thing about spearfishing and diving is I've never had a bad day diving, never. And
Yeah.
the things that you see can be out of this world. I dove down in Georgia twice a year. We have world class bull red fishing. And in the spring, it can get messed up a little bit because of the salinity in the water. If you've had a lot of rain, the females won't come in because their eggs won't fertilize. They develop. If the temperature's cold, they won't come in. So in the spring, it can be weird, right? You can get the big run split up over 2 or 3 months. But in the fall, we call it the hunt for red October. In the fall, they're coming. The first full moon in October, they are coming in by the hundreds of thousands. And I'm talking about
No
20
way.
pound, 20 pound males, 30, 40, 50 pound females. And it's not unusual to go fishing for a day, and by lunchtime, you've caught 50. You haven't caught
Yeah.
one under 20 pounds. I don't do it anymore. I take people to do it because it gets tiring. Like it's like once you've done something. It was
Yeah.
in the spring. It was in the spring, and the water that day was terribly, terribly clear. And we don't dive public numbers either. Maybe at the beginning of the season once or twice, or if you're trying to shoot a cobia, public numbers is not something we dive. But that particular day, the water was so clear. We were going to see if maybe there were some cobia. It was a little early, and you could see parts of the Liberty ship 77, 80 feet down underwater without even getting the water was that clear. And
Wow, that's cool.
I didn't charge my GoPro that day and whatever. And Wesley was like, go down, take a look. And when I jumped in the water, I looked at the bottom and it looked weird. Like there was bait fish. There was acres of bait fish everywhere. And I'm thinking, the water temperature's not right for these bait fish to be here. And I swam a little bit further, and I was scuba diving this day, by the way. We were actually scuba diving, not free diving. And I swam a little bit further, and I got spooked because it was weird. It was like watching, I don't know, poltergeist or something. The whole floor of the ocean was moving for as far as I could see. And at 50 feet, the deeper you go, the more colors you lose. But at 50 feet, you lose the color red, right? Red's not a color. You're not going to see that color. When you get to 70 feet, you're seeing in black and white. You're shooting fish based on it's black and white silver. You're shooting fish based on their color. Or I'm sorry, based on their shape, not their color. But I go a little bit further. I'm getting really, really spooked. And all of a sudden I'm here, It was the males. It was the male drum. The bull reds were stacked up 20 miles off the coast, getting ready to come in with the next full moon. And I went down to the bottom, and I literally, hundreds of thousands. And I got on my knees on the sand, and I sat there, and I slowed my breathing down, and they just passed over me. They made a bubble around me, and it was anywhere from 4 feet to 8 feet as bull reds, 20, 25 pounds, just rolled over me for 30 minutes. And any spot pattern that you could imagine, you would see. And then occasionally there would be a golden colored one, and the golden color for some reason would actually show up. So he wouldn't be graying into black and white. But that was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. And I didn't shoot a single fish the entire dive. And my air's running out. I get back up and I'm telling Wesley what's happening. So Wesley gets down and he gets to see the tail end of the school as they're moving off. He's like, dude, that was absolutely amazing. But spearfishing is one of those things. There's no such thing as a bad day. And, you never know what you're going to see. So, yes, I have been. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I have been in the water with the great whites before, too. It was a little unnerving the first time when the shadow comes over you. But the other times weren't so bad. But the bull sharks, you hit on it. The bull sharks are the only ones that's ever given me a problem.
Okay. Man, so I lived in Washington, in Seattle for a little while, and I have a couple of amateur buddies that did it in the Puget Sound,
Right.
and they said same thing. It's just even though they
There's
don't go
nothing
out
like
all that
it.
often, but they said it's just the
Nothing
most
like it.
amazing thing ever. Even the water's frigid, but the Puget Sound is a crazy
Right.
diversity of fish up there. But yeah, it's something that's been on my list for a long time. I've just never gotten around to it.
Yeah.
Don't know why.
That
I should
that
try it out. I'm sure my wife would
that
love to go somewhere with warm
it's
water.
very addictive. I would compare it to crack or meth, so I don't recommend that you do it, especially if you're not near the coast. And it
Yeah,
takes a while. The other thing too is that I have over 3,000 tank dives and probably 20 or 30,000 free dives. I'm 53. I got certified when I was in college. I didn't have any
yeah,
money to do it until I got 30, right?
yeah.
Where you can actually go and do it. But this time of year, if it wasn't for Vote for America, this time of year I'm fishing, spearfishing 3-4 days a week, and
Okay,
but it's very very addictive. You love it. We'll go and shoot sheephead once a year, and fill up our freezer and vacuum seal it. We'll go and shoot the flounder
okay.
once a year, one trip a year, and again we have the different species that we shoot. So I'm not opposed to eating beef from the store or buying stuff from the store, but most everything that I consume protein wise is something that I personally harvested. And the
I believe
deer,
it.
we make our own sausage. We do whatever. And when I do order beef, I normally order it from a guy in Florida that raises the beef. But for me, knowing where my food comes from is a big deal. It's a really
Yeah.
really big deal.
Yeah, I found that I didn't. It's not why I started hunting, but I found out that like when I'm cooking the meat that I have harvested, it
It's
like
something
means a lot
about
more
it.
to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like when I'm cooking, whatever meal bought from the grocery store, it's kind of like this sucks. I'm cooking. I don't want to be cooking. I'll get
Yeah.
this done. But whenever it comes to like, I had some friends over the other day, and I had shot some axis deer in Hawaii, and I was just like, I made axis deer tartare, and I made a bolognese, and I spent hours in the kitchen just preparing this meat for these people,
Right.
being like, this is what it's all about. It's just there's something different about it. So I
Yeah.
get that, and I hope to eventually get to the point that I don't have to buy protein from the store anymore. So we'll see. We'll see if
Yeah.
I can get there.
Nice.
That's the end goal.
I'll give you all something so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So Kelly Young, Island Key, she's a big YouTuber, South Florida YouTuber. I'm
Hmm.
probably in 10 or 12 of her different videos that she made. But she came the last weekend of turkey season this year to Georgia, and the first day, it rained all night, it rained all day, or whatever. And we're trying to make videos, right? So I take her to the most beautiful turkey hunting place ever, and
Yeah,
nothing. There's no birds gobbling, nothing. And there's just and this place is beautiful.
yeah,
So we drive around, we check my 700 acres, no luck. I call a friend, so we go over that afternoon, and Tori, she got a new baby. Her mother-in-law's been sick, her husband hurt his foot, so she hadn't been. So we got to go that afternoon, and sure enough, I mean, we're in Appling County, and there's just gobblers all over the field. The sun has come out after 3 days of rain, and they're strutting everywhere. So perfect. And we this big long field, they don't know how to get there. I'm like, all right, we're going to get the branch, we're going to go around. And I don't ever use a strutter decoy. It's very rare that I use a strutter decoy. Tori had one that day, and Kelly, we got in position, and there's like ten gobblers in the field. I mean, they're a couple hundred yards away. I'm like, all right, this last weekend, give me that strutter decoy. I'm going to ease out in the field, see if I can't get them to come down here. And
yeah.
sure enough, I get in the field, they come running. Well, Kelly gave me her GoPro, right? And the GoPro is already filming. I turned the GoPro off. So my fat butt is out in the field, and I can see all these gobblers coming running. Well, at the angle that they're at, they can't. And as soon as the first gobbler comes by, he's all right. He's got like a 6 or 7 inch beard. And the next bird comes, boom, they're blasting. Two birds go down, whatever. It's great. And then here comes like five gobblers in, jumping on the other birds and everything. So it's good. And in Georgia, you can only shoot one gobbler per day. So that's everything's awesome, everything's great. Till we realized that the GoPro wasn't filming all the footage. So Kelly's like
Oh
terribly
no,
depressed. So she just had a great hunt. They
gotcha.
doubled up or
So you
whatever.
turned it
So
off because you
I
thought you
turned
were
it.
turning it
I
on.
thought I
Got
thought I
it.
was turning it on. So we absolutely destroyed that. And so we're riding around. James and Tori, they own about, I don't know, 3,000 acres, and here's some massive gobblers in this field. I'm talking about studs, like
Yeah,
complete studs. And I'm like, all right, this is what we're going to do. Tomorrow morning, we're going to come here. We're going to set up. They're going to be roasted over here. They're going to come down. They're going to come across the field to us. We're going to be in the truck by 7 o'clock. All right, they're all laughing at me or whatever. So we get out there, showing that we were a little late, got in the field. Birds are gobbling, call them. They come down. These birds came from 700 yards, and they come across all the way. They come all the way across the field. They heard me. They're watching. I'm telling Tori and Kelly, like, shh, be quiet, because they're on top of the hill, 500 yards away, like looking over where the decoys are set up. But these birds come in just as hot as they can be, and you can go type in Kelly Young, Island Key, or whatever, Georgia turkey hunt, and you can actually see this. So those birds get up there, and Tori shoots first. She shoots first and misses. Then Kelly shoots and kills her bird. And it's hilarious, right? I mean, it's complete chaos breaks loose. And I mean, it's a nice bird. I mean, Kelly kills a very, very nice bird. It's like at 6:30 in the morning. And it's great. Everything's perfect. Tori's all depressed. I'm like, hey, it's going to be fun. Whatever. I'm gonna go back. She's like, I'm gonna go back and get my gun with the I don't know, with a red dot on it. So we drop the bird off at the house. We go to another spot in a field. There's a big gobbler in the field and 2 jakes. We get set up there. They come right to us. That's the last day of the season. Those girls were just as happy as they could be. So, talking about hunting stories, that's for me. I was laughing pretty hard about the whole thing, but I was very disappointed when I turned the GoPro off, because that's what she does. I mean, she's a YouTuber, and I was a little depressed, but I was confident that we'd be okay. But that's a good episode for your listeners to watch and see some Georgia turkey hunting firsthand. But
awesome. I'll make sure to put a link to that.
Yeah. Next year's turkey hunting is going to be a lot better. We probably had 30 gobblers that made it through the season, depending on which property where we were at, and, 70 to 100 jakes. So I'm really excited for turkey season. And I am a terrible turkey caller. I'm a very good turkey killer. And the number one mistake people make with turkeys is they overcall them, right? You're trying to get the turkey to do the exact opposite of what he does in nature, right? He gobbles. They're supposed to come to him. And I define a gobbler as like the ultimate narcissist, right? Like, here I am, I'm beautiful, come see me. Yeah. And the one thing that the narcissist can't stand is the person, the girl that doesn't pay them any attention, right? So you need to pay them enough attention to let them know that you're there. And if there's a bunch of hens in the area and you call that gobbler aggressively, well, hens are the most jealous things in the world. They're going to immediately take your gobbler the other way. So number one mistake, I would say, is overcalling. The number 2 mistake is calling hard at gobblers when there's hens in the area, because they're going to cut you off and they're going to take your gobbler the other way. Gotcha. So I would tell you, your listeners, this is my turkey hunting tip to everyone, that you will kill more turkeys calling the hen and throwing sand with your hand. Take and throw sand on the leaves where it sounds like another hen that's feeding. If you sound like a hen that's feeding, she doesn't pose a threat to the opposing hen, and the hen will come over there to see what's going on, what they're eating, and they'll drag the gobbler along behind them. So, Jason, redneck turkey hunting tips. So I think we go. I've had one person, Miranda Adams. She was on Naked and Afraid. She's never been hunting before. She's the only person in 5 years that I've taken turkey hunting that didn't kill the turkey. And we're afternoon turkey hunting, and she's sitting there, and I can't see. She's blocking me in the tree, and I know that they like to be in these shades. And she turns over to me and says, "Jason, there's a turkey right there." And literally, the gobbler was like 8 yards from her on the left. He had come up behind her. I'm like, you can't. This girl doesn't hunt, right? So she didn't know you can't do that. And he takes off running. If you're going to have to shoot a turkey running from you, like running straight down the road away from you is absolutely perfect. And she did not get a turkey. And I think like 2 weeks later, I went back and killed that gobbler. But yeah, turkey hunting, I do like it because you don't have to be quiet, and you're doing it with somebody a lot of times. But taking those new people is really what I'm passionate about. every new person that I bring into hunting, is somebody else that helps us vote and preserve our heritage and what we like to do. But every girl that I introduce into hunting or firearms pretty much guarantees that her kids are going to be raised that way. Right.
Yeah,
I think a
I
lot of
agree.
husbands probably owe me gift certificates on like wedding day for the amount of new hunters that I've brought into hunting and fishing and introduced that
Yeah,
they like it. But yeah, man,
that's pretty awesome.
that's it. But yeah, any
That's
story,
awesome.
if shooting the hogs, one of the guys, actually, this is fun. One of the guys, the Trump assassination that happened a couple of weeks ago, and you'll see the
Yeah.
Secret Service guys laying down on top of him or whatever, and you're going to see this big, tall dude, this big, tall SWAT guy that comes up in the middle of the stage, and he's looking like both ways or whatever. That dude's the head of the SWAT team, and he came down with some ATF boys and went hog hunting with me this summer. So that guy
Oh,
that's standing
really?
in the middle of the stage, yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, that's freaking Ben. Like he can't kill a hog for crap. Like those dudes were horrible at shooting, man. Like they
No,
showed
we
up
don't want to hear
dude,
that.
they showed up to Georgia wearing $20,000 a piece with something like binoculars, thermal binoculars that at 1,200 yards you could see a coyote lick his paw. Like
No way.
they
That's
showed up with
cool.
every toy imaginable in the boat, and were absolutely horrible at hunting because when they
Did
when
they
they
get
got like,
opportunity?
oh yeah, they got opportunity. They ended up killing some, but if you're a SWAT guy or a hostage negotiation guy, you have hours to adjust the dope on your scope and this, that, and other. And the first night that we're taking them, like, hey, let's shoot a couple coyotes first, and they go, get your stuff together, get ready. We pull up to this field, there's coyotes in it, like, whack them. Man, the first field we pull up to, there's like two coyotes at 200 yards. You can't ask for any more. This is South Georgia. Throw it out, lay it on the mirror, shooting. Man, they get out of the truck and start opening cases and putting this on and that on. And believe it or not, the coyotes stood there for like 45 seconds, which is unheard of. It took them like 20 minutes to get all their stuff together, like to get ready to go. I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, that was a practice run. We got all our rifles the way we want. Don't put your rifles back in the case. Get your, have your tripods, all this stuff.
Yeah.
We pull up to the next field and we're looking and there's nothing there, but we look across the dirt road in the other field and like 400 yards, there's three coyotes out there, and they start blasting at these coyotes. And I don't know what was wrong with the scopes or what they were meant. I mean, they shot like 10 times, and the coyotes are sitting there looking at them like the Taliban. It's suppressed. The coyotes kind of run off. And we pull to the next field, and there's a big coon in the field, like at 200 yards. This big coon's in the field. And they all get out like, hey, y'all shoot this coon. They go down to the chicken houses. They start blasting at the coon, and they keep messing with their scopes. Like they're just constantly messing with their scopes. I've had all I can take, right? I'm like, hey, y'all move that stuff out of the way behind my truck. I crank my truck up, cut it around, get my deer rifle, lay it on the thing, and shoot the coon, and just coon parts go everywhere. I'm like, listen to me. Y'all set y'all's rifles on 200 yards. Do
Yeah.
not touch them again. Do not touch them. If the animal's at 300 yards, know that you're roughly going to be 4 inches low or whatever, so compensate
Yeah.
from there. I said, I don't want to see anybody touching a scope unless the animal's over 500 or 600 yards away. Everything 200 yards or less, just shoot him, right? It might be an inch high at 100 yards. So by the second night, they got a little bit better, and they kill some they kill some hogs. The second night, the first time they came up and they shot at like 6 pigs. I don't know. They might have been 10 pounds apiece or whatever. And
Yeah.
these guys, they are so happy. It sounds like the streets of Fallujah and pigs going whatever. And they kill 2. Like there's 3 of them. They 1, 2, 3 of them, and they kill 2. Right, and they're shooting all over the place and just thrilled. I mean, they are excited. And I get it. They don't have hogs up there, and they're really
Yeah.
really excited over the pigs. And then when they killed a couple of 200-pound hogs, so it's great the next night. So
Okay,
third night, I take them to a plantation. A friend of mine, and he's got a bunch of old, like 65, 70-year-old dudes with hip replacements in, that come hunting with him every year. And there's hogs all over this 1,000-acre field. Ben, the guy, the SWAT guy said, "Oh me," they're all wanting a single file line, military. Down, whoa, 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 slow down. Like, doesn't do us any good. You got these old dudes behind you. They can't go as fast as us. They got to get up there in a straight line. And the hogs were feeding away, and they get there in the line. They're like, "Brett, I want to take my truck. I'm going to go around to the road and see if I can't push these hogs back to you." And sure enough, it's a big field, right? So they didn't spook. They start feeding back. And anyway, they're in line, and Brett calls out, which ones to shoot. And 1, 2, 3, they go to shooting. He's got four old dudes. There's the 5 of them. They go to blasting. One hog runs around behind the line. Brett swings around and shoots it like a 250-pound sow. And I call them. I go around there. The old dudes with the hip replacements, every one of them killed the first one. The hog that they shot at. And they have like $900 thermals on, and some of them are suppressed, some of them are not suppressed or whatever. And my guys that came in, again, there's a big difference when you have split seconds to shoot at something versus getting all day long to play with your scope and watch it. But they had a lot of fun, and they ended up killing a few more hogs. But I told them, I said, "Listen, if the Taliban had thermals, none of y'all would have ever came home. I just want you to know that. Like, none of y'all would have came home if the Taliban had thermals." Yeah, they shoot a little bit better than this. But yeah, man, I picked on them, rode them like a pony. But that was a lot of fun.
Funny, man.
Yeah.
That's a great story. I love it, especially these like highly trained guys
Oh,
with
yeah.
their amazing setups and just struggling. It makes me feel a little bit better about when I struggle.
But now you do not want to shoot against any of those guys on a course. Like, we shot a course at the plantation that afternoon, and they were just freaking phenomenal. It did not matter 1,200 yards or whatever, but going down, laying down on a rock, ranging the target, sitting there, stuff, absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, they did not miss. They were freaking lights out.
That's
but
cool.
There's a big difference. No. They were 100% lights out, right?
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between when you just have split seconds and you don't know where it's going to be, and it's in the dark and you're doing whatever. Sometimes you got to do that redneck adjusting. Don't touch the scope. Leave the scope alone, because the time that you're touching the scope, that animal's gone. Just know that, all right, your bullet at 400 yards is going to drop, this many inches or whatever, and let it fly. But that was eye opening. So
yeah, that's interesting, man. Well, Jason, man, this has been a lot of fun. I know I've actually taken up more time, I think, than I originally scheduled. So I think I'm going to have you back at some point, because I have a feeling you have a lot more stories for us. But let's wrap this thing up with 2 things. One, why don't you tell people a little bit more about Vote for America? Is that right?
Vote the number 4 America.org. You can go there. You can register to vote in less than 2 minutes. We don't. It's optional. You don't have to put in your email address. You don't want to put in your phone number. We could care less. We're not in the data collection business. We're in the getting people out to vote business. It is not enough for hunters to vote by themselves. Every single one of us knows one person that didn't vote last time. And you don't have to go in the Walmart parking lot or dollar store parking lot to find that person. It's a church member. It's a hunting club member. It's someone you served with. It's a relative. You know one person that didn't vote last time. It's your grumpy ass Uncle Steve that thinks that his vote doesn't matter. But you want to make America feel like home again? Find one person and take them with you. And when we show up, it's going to be the hunters, the gun owners, the veterans that set this country on the right course one way or the other. I prefer we do it at the ballot box, right? So, find somebody and take them with you to vote.
That's awesome, man. Here's what I'll do. To my listeners, if you talk to someone and get them voting, send me a direct message. I'll pick one person and I'll give them like a gift card or a hat or something. So get out there, guys, and invite some friends that don't hunt, but don't vote to vote this year. Get people out. So, Jason, thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
Finally, let's give your you said it earlier, I think Yeti Man 10. Any other socials
10,
you want to share?
No, that's I've had 300,000 follower accounts canceled, deleted, because I don't keep my views to myself. So Yeti is my 15-year-old German short hair. So I just I swapped over to using his Instagram page we set up years ago. But Yeti Man 10, named for my dog. You can scroll through there and see a lot of the fishing and hunting pictures from around the world.
Perfect, man. Well, I will try and find that Georgia hunt to put in the show notes. I will put your Yeti Man 10 in the show notes, and of course, vote for the number 4 America. I'll put that in the show notes. So if you guys are listening, please check those out. click on them all. And Jason, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate your
Man,
time and your stories today.
yeah, thank you.
All right, guys, that's it. Another couple stories in the books. Again, I want to thank Jason for coming on the podcast, especially all the way from Medellin, Colombia. So thank you, Jason. Really do appreciate it. Some great stories, especially some of the stuff there at the end with like the FBI guys. That's pretty funny stuff. But really, what's important here, guys, go to voteforamerica.com, register to vote if you haven't already. Find one person that didn't vote last time and just say, hey, promise me you're going to vote. Don't care who you vote for, but I have a feeling that their values probably align with yours. So get people out there, get people voting, and let's make a difference. Beyond that, guys, if you have some stories for your own, please make sure you reach out to me, and let's get them recorded. Other than that, make sure you review the podcast on whatever you're listening to. That's it, guys. Let's now get out there and make some stories of your own. Thank you.